Apple shares up about 11% in August. There's been some recent headlines about expanding iPhone production in India, along with the company's commitment to boost manufacturing here in the U.S. Joining us now with more on Apple, Wamsi Mohan, Bank of America Securities analyst. Wamsi, the stock looked like it was coming out of the doldrums in August after what you don't typically hear about Apple, up 2% over the past year. It's been dead money. No one's really done well. And it's down year to date. The only other Mag 7 stock is Tesla, as you point out. It has been as high as 260. Your target for it is only 250. So you're bullish, but you're not pounding the table, really.
Yeah, good morning, Joe. We think Apple shares are pretty attractively valued. I think that there are some wall of worries that Apple shares still have to climb. And when you look at sort of the setup here, we had tariffs that were a huge headwind to the company. There were the whole Google payment, which is still an overhang on the stock. And then lastly, as you think about the AI narrative on the stock, these are the three things that have kept our price target a little bit more tighter in this current environment relative to what it could have been in a very bullish scenario. So when we step back and look at those three things, I think the tariff issue is more or less turning out to be more of a non-issue at the moment. So that means there's another maybe 1.1 billion incremental of cost headwind that goes away. The Google tech issue is still something that news is fairly imminent there. The company still has to contend with that. We'll see where the outcomes are. I think it reflects probably more on the multiple than earnings, given what we know today. But that is still a TBD. And if that overhang were to go away, I think we could be a lot more constructive on the shares. And the last thing is around AI. And on AI, I think that Apple, we've said consistently, will be a winner on AI at the edge. It is taking longer than I think most people anticipated. There was a botched rollout of AI. And since then, the company has been investing a lot more time and energy and money, obviously, into driving an AI-enabled phone, which I think will also drive upside 2 years out from here, right? So as we put all those things together, I just think that the story here hinges a lot more on lower volatility in volatile times driven by services and services gross profit becoming a much larger piece of the mix. So we're very constructive longer term, but in the near term, there are some headwinds that we acknowledge we do have to get over.
So services contribute more to gross profit now than iPhone. Is that permanent or depending on iPhone cycles?
It is. That's a good question, Joe. I think that we are heading into potentially an era where AI and the foldable form factor both intersect in the fall of 2026. If that were to happen, you probably get a pretty strong iPhone cycle. So transitorily, you could get a quarter or so where iPhone gross profits could exceed services. Now, that said, when I think about services, you've got about a 1.2 billion install base of iPhones. Only 300 million subs are actually paying anything to Apple at the moment, so they have a long way to go in increasing penetration there. Of those 300 million, only 30 million are actually contributing the overwhelming majority of that services revenue. So when you just think about the opportunity set here, you've got 30 million subs on 1.2 billion install base that has significant amount of room to grow increasing penetration within subs while the install base itself is growing. And then you have pricing power on top of that. So double-digit services growth, we believe very strongly in that for the foreseeable future. And we think the gross margins at 75% are going to dominate everything else and very soon exceed even product gross profit over the next 5 years. So the volatility in the stock is just going away. Like when you throw a lot of adverse news on the product side at the company, the magnitude of what the earnings shortfall could be is limited to about 10%. So that's incredible for a company of this size and scope. And so we think that the multiple on this name should re-rate higher as these gross profits become such a more important key part of the story.
Forever with Apple, there's always a discussion of the law of large numbers. I can remember having it 10, 15 years ago, and like how much higher can it go? And it used to be about $1 trillion market cap. Is that really possible? We're back to talking about that, though. I mean, how much the law of large numbers applies again, doesn't it? It's almost $4 trillion. When it was at its high, what was the market cap for Apple Wamsi?
Yeah, it was close. It was in the high threes, and I think that when you step back and look at sort of where this stock can go, I think the way we have to look at it is from a two perspectives. One is the install base continuing to grow, and where can that go? And I think that first point, right, like emerging markets, which have really not been a huge part of this install-based growth story, are going to be the next leg of install-based growth. And the reason that's happening is because in the emerging markets, these have generally been cash-based economies, and they're moving more and more to credit-based economies, which means it's becoming a lot more affordable now to buy an iPhone in a lot of these emerging markets. And that's what the next generation wants. Everyone wants an iPhone. And so you still have this brand value in emerging markets that is yet to be monetized. And I think that that's a huge deal. So you really have a big step up that's coming in the install base over time. And just the other point around services, when you think about monetization and penetration of that install base, there is significant room. We're only 30 million penetrated on a 1.3 billion, which is growing. So you have ample room to monetize that too. So the growth can go on for a very long period of time here.
That is, that's incredible. You're going to see iPhones everywhere in the world, and in places where some of the lesser developed countries where you'll be surprised to see people on their phone. It's coming and it's happening. And the infrastructure is ready to go in a lot of those places too. The towers and everything you need for connectivity. I guess it's all happening.
That's right, Joe. I think that real time you walk into, and we go to Asia every year multiple times to do our checks in supply chain, and you just see the rate and pace at which things are evolving over there. It's fairly incredible, and the usage metrics. Everyone has smartphones.